कर्पूरगौरं करुणावतारं संसारसारं भुजगेन्द्रहारं सदा वसन्तं हृदयारविन्दे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि।
Greed? I don't know how to define greed, but I would, in my own silly, stupid way, I would define greed as unlimited, irrational desire.
No, generally greed is like this. What I want is need. What you want is greed. Generally, that's how it is defined. Greed is a strong word, we don't have to go to this. Why? Greed is a consequence of a certain unfulfilled state. When I say a consequence of a certain unfulfilled state, what is a human being longing for? Every human being. All of you, wherever you are right now, you would like to be little more than what you're right now, isn't it so? Hello? Yes. If that little more happens, what? Little more? If that happens, what? So it looks like in installments you're going towards something. How much more would settle you for good? Let's look at it right now. Why go at it in installments? How much more would settle you? Hello? If I make you the king or queen of the solar system, don't look at me with hope. I am not known to commit such blunders. Even if you become the king or queen of the solar system, you will not be fulfilled, you will look at the stars. Because this is the nature of the human being. There is something within you always longing to expand in a boundless way. Because you have gotten so very identified with your physical form, you're trying to find this boundless way through physical means. When we say physical, let's understand this. Physicality can exist only because of a defined boundary. If there is no boundary, there is no physicality possible. You can say something is physical only if it has a defined boundary, otherwise it cannot be physical. So through something which is physical is the world of boundaries. Through the world of boundaries, you're trying to reach towards boundlessness. This is like you're driving your ambassador car. Unfortunately, I don't see too many on the Calcutta roads anymore. You're driving your ambassador car, but you want to go to the moon. You may go beyond the moon sometimes, if you try hard. But you will not go to the moon because to go to the moon you need a different kind of vehicle altogether. So you're seeking boundlessness unconsciously. So you're trying to go towards boundlessness through physical means. When it finds very basic physical expression, you wanting to be more than yourself, we call this sexuality. All you're trying to do is something that is not you, you're trying to make it a part of yourself for a few moments. If it finds emotional expression, we call this love. Something that is not you, you want to include as a part of yourself. If it finds a mental expression, it gets labeled as greed, ambition, conquest, or simply shopping. If it finds a conscious expression, we call this yoga. Yoga means union. Yoga means you successfully erased the boundaries of your individuality. Because the boundaries of your individual nature are essentially your making. When I say it's essentially your making, right now let us say you're sitting here, unfortunately somebody that you don't like, your enemy, happened to settle down in the chair next to you or in front of you. You can't stand them. You're sweating sitting there because this horrible person is sitting next to you. What we say? No. Your mind cannot take it, but your body has no issue. What they exhale, you're inhaling consciously, but no problem. Yes? Yes or no? Your body has no problem, this life has no problem, only your mind has problem. Because your mind recognizes the boundary, your body doesn't recognize the boundary. You sit here and breathe, what you exhale, the trees are inhaling, what the trees exhale, you're inhaling. Really, if you look at it, one half of your lungs is hanging out there. Yes, your life is not happening separately, it is happening as a one whole thing. You are just a pop-up from this planet. You know, you have seen those pop-ups on your screen, on your computer screen. If they're paid only for 2 seconds ad, it just pops up for 2 seconds and poop. In the life of this planet, you're just a 2-second pop-up and you'll pop out. Yes or no? So, this pop-up doesn't understand it's just a pop-up, it thinks it's eternal, its boundaries are eternal. You must get this now, these boundaries are all made by you. If you really fix the boundary, you can't breathe and you will die right now. It is a transaction which is keeping you alive. So this sense of boundary is wanting you to expand. Because you know only physicality, you're trying to expand physically. If somebody expands faster than you say he's greedy. If you are expanding faster than somebody, then you think you're successful.
What stimulates or motivates a leader? You've got there. A Mahendra Singh Dhoni is there, right at the top. What motivates them to achieve more?
You're essentially asking what drives them.
Yes.
If they're driven by something, they shouldn't be leading anything, in my opinion. When you drive, you are not driven, you are driving, then you're a leader. If you're driven by something, then you're also a slave, but you have a bunch of slaves behind you. Whether your ambition drives you, or your God-given mission drives you, or your greed drives you, or whatever drives you, if something is driving you, in my opinion, I wouldn't call that person a leader. Nothing drives you. I'm made like this, I really have no need for action. If I close my eyes and sit here, I can sit here till I fall dead. Really, I can simply sit. I have simply no need for action. But all the time on. People think I have a mission. There is no mission. I see an enormous longing in people around me. I see it's needed, so I do what I can do. People call this all kinds of things, oh, Sadhguru is 20 hours a day, 7 days, how can he do this? He must be having God talking to him every day. No. This is just this. If you just pay attention to this, Every human being is capable of knowing this. The very body that you carry, you create it from inside. There is an intelligence here, there is a competence here which is capable of transforming a piece of bread into a complex machine called human mechanism. This is the most complex piece of technology on the planet. You agree with me? Those of you who are engrossed with your phones, I'm asking you. This is the most complex piece of technology. This you are capable of making with a piece of bread or a mango or a fish or whatever you eat. Now, if you can tap into this intelligence, even if a drop of this intelligence which can make bread into body came into conscious access, suddenly life would become magical. This is what every human being has to do, because the highest form of intelligence is right here, not here, it's right across. Right now we're mistaking intellect for intelligence. Intellect is like a knife, it cuts through a few things, it helps you with survival, but it doesn't show you the nature of life. It doesn't give you access to life. In fact, it chops up everything. If you apply your intellect too much to anything and everything gets chopped up. It's a good instrument for dissection when you want to know something. So, today our science has entirely become dissection. This works okay when you're doing some material stuff, but now you want to know your mother very well, so you dissect her. No, please, this is not the way, okay? This is not the way. You must keep your instrument of dissection aside and see how to embrace and include somebody. Only then you know them. By dissection, you may see their liver, kidney, spleen, but you won't know that piece of life in any context, isn't it? So the problem is just this, that we think a leader means he must be boom, boom, slogan shouting, fired up. No, I think leadership has to mature into your place. A leader must be someone who has transcended his own needs. There is nothing driving him, then he will do what is needed. This is what I'm trying to create with every human being in the world. That is, you are no more in pursuit of happiness, you're blissed out by your own nature. When you're not in pursuit of happiness, you are no more a vested interest in the world. You will do what is needed. But when you are in pursuit of happiness, if I do this, I will find happiness. If I do that, I will get fulfillment, or if I get this, I will get fulfillment. When you're in such a state, knowingly or unknowingly, you are a vested interest. Knowingly or unknowingly, you will cause much harm. People may not realize that right now. Generations later, people look back and say, look at the things they did in the past. But if you are joyful and blissful by your own nature, your intelligence will function in a completely different way. You will do just what is needed. Another thing is, you are free from the fear of suffering. Only and only when you are free of fear of suffering will you stride, full stride in your life. Otherwise, every step is a half a step. What will happen, what will happen, what will happen? Whatever happens, this is how I will be. If this assurance comes to you, then you would explore your life in many, many ways than you are doing right now, isn't it? This one thing must happen for every leader. This is the reason why last 20 years we've been focusing on the leadership in the world, political, business, bureaucratic leadership, all kinds. This is about 12, 13 years ago, someone, very prominent person came to the yoga center and they went through the inner engineering program and they said, Sadhguru, this is fantastic, but what about the nation? So I told them, see, I have a clear-cut plan. I have listed out 2,000 people I'm not talking about prime ministers, chief ministers, because they come and go. You know, the life of a democratic leader may be 5 years or 10 years at the most, some may last a little longer. But generally that's all it is. But there are another set of leaders, business leaders, bureaucratic leaders, social leaders, who are there for a solid 25, 30-year span. In many ways, these are the people who ultimately are the legs for any political leadership. They are the people who actually deliver the goods. So I said, see, I have a list of 2,000 people. You get me these 2,000 people in the next 4 years, you will see in the next 8 to 10 years, you will see a significant transformation in the country. We've been going at it nearly 14, 15 years, I think now. I think we have touched about 42 to 43% of this leadership. And they're making a quiet difference. I'm here with you for the same purpose.
But Sadhguru, tell me one thing. One of my closest friends' wives had a very bad back problem. And now she is doing yoga and it seems she will be able to avoid surgery and she will get cured, hopefully, by yoga. How do we take this science, which energizes the body, to the youth of the country?
The youth of any nation has some level of volatility and some level of confusion. But right now, the youth in India, in many ways are at crossroads. They do not know culturally whether they want to fall this way or that way. Usha has successfully, straddled the two worlds. Look at her, how she looks, but she's a rock singer, okay. So, others are all struggling how to, they don't know whether to get totally westernized or stay Indian. Somebody says Bharat, somebody says India, it's a confusion for the youth. The youth means it is humanity in the making. And terrible things have been happening in the country. In our country, so many things are happening. In this, what is happening to children and youth is of great concern because it seems in the last 1 year, 1,700 children below 16 years of age committed suicide in this country. When children start committing suicide, we need to understand we are doing something fundamentally wrong, something very fundamentally wrong. When children below 16 years of age commit suicide in such numbers, we need to understand with grave concern that fundamentals are not being handled properly. I heard this number about 4 months ago. Then I told our people, this year for the yoga day, we must touch 10,000 schools. We must teach yoga in 10,000 schools. People balked, but they've gotten used to it these days. My aspirations. 10,000 looked like a big number 4 months ago. Then I just traveled 8 states and met the chief ministers of every state. But all of them came with such enthusiasm that today we have made MOUs with these 8 states and the 9th state is coming through now. It is going to cross 30,000 schools. We have trained 45,600 teachers who in turn will train 3 teachers in every school. And this is not a one-day thing, will happen as a part of the school curriculum, just 20 minutes a day, a simple form of what is called as Upa-yoga. Upa-yoga means it's sub-yoga. If you teach yoga, there are certain parameters that you must maintain because it doesn't matter how innocuous a yogic practice looks, every one of them has a spiritual dimension to it. Simply the way you sit, the way you breathe, it has. Without those dimensions, if you teach, it would be irresponsible. So, we took this Upa-yoga and which doesn't have a spiritual side to it, which is purely for their physical and psychological well-being. It is of immense need in the country. We are probably touching somewhere around 17 to 18 million children between 10 to 16 years of age. That's the age group we have chosen. But this is still a drop in the ocean. This is not a total solution. This needs to happen on a much larger scale. My commitment is… Did all of you brush your teeth today? Those of you not saying anything, please. You brushed your teeth today because the tools for keeping your dental hygiene are with you. Suppose it was in the hands of the government or with an organization, the toothbrush is in my hands. You have to come every day and I will brush you. I'm sure many of you would miss it because the queue, you know. Now everybody has the tools of their dental hygiene. Similarly, every human being should have the tools of self-transformation in their hands. It should not be in the hands of a guru or an organization or some other kind of edifice that has been built. Every human being must have access to this. With this intent, we are doing many things. Fortunately, I consider myself, I was speaking somewhere and I said, Sadhguru, who is the greatest guru in the world? I said, of course me. So Mike Tyson's posture, this is me, I'm the greatest guru. They said, what's happened to Sadhguru? I said, see, when a Krishna came, however graceful and fantastic he was, if he spoke, the gentle being that he was, if he spoke, maybe 50 people heard him. Those behind did not hear. When a Gautama, the Buddha came, he was little more, He didn't have the same aesthetic problems as Krishna. He was more committed towards his mission. So maybe he spoke little loudly, 100 people heard. Today we have come to a world where we can sit here and talk to 1 billion people if you want at once. So when this kind of situation has come, a time has come where everybody should have access to it. It should not be limited to organizations, gurus, scriptures, this, that. Every human being, as they know how to keep their mouth clean, they must know how to keep themselves clean. The necessary tools must be made available. Our commitment is just to offer the tools. No philosophies, no belief systems, no ideologies, no forming of one more new religion. But every human being should have the tools and they must know how to use it. Today it is possible. Never before this was possible, today it is possible.
Very often a public display of simplicity is taken for simplicity itself and it's regarded as a virtue. How does one actually impress upon people that it is not a display of simplicity that is important, but it is the simplicity of thought and simplicity of virtue that is more important?
I would appreciate simplicity of thought. I think we need a more sophisticated and complexity of thought. Why do we need simplicity of thought? Do we want to become earthworms? I know they're more eco-friendly, but that's not the idea of being human. This entire simplicity business has come from very mediocre minds. Saints and sages of the past, if you look at them, they lived in accordance to the times in which they lived. Someone whatever I do it with a certain involvement and passion. So I drive in a certain way. So, one journalist comes to me and asks, yogis always walked across this country. You are driving by yourself, what kind of a yogi are you? I said, you idiot. 1,000 years ago, not just yogis, everybody was walking only. Not just yogis, everybody was walking. So he was also walking. Now if I walk and go, you will say, see what a fool he is. If I drive, you'll see he's driving. Will I become more spiritual if I have a chauffeur-driven car? So right now there is this thing that spirituality is some kind of a disability. Because if you say I'm spiritual, first thing they will ask you is, what are the things you cannot do? They will not ask you, what are the things you can do? So, I took it upon myself to confuse the hell out of people. Nobody can figure what I am. I am many things at the same time. I have driven in competitive racing, I'm a licensed rotary wing pilot, I'm a licensed diver, I'm many things. Because spirituality is empowerment, it is not a disability. The reason why most people have rejected spirituality is because some people projected the idea, if you dress badly, if you eat badly and if you live badly, you must be spiritual. This has to change. This has to change. Everybody needs to understand what you eat, what you wear, where you live is a question of your requirement and your aesthetic. How you are within yourself is your spirituality. Instead of fixing the interiority, you're fixing the paraphernalia, you're fixing your clothing. So, if you just wear a small piece of cloth around your loins, you will not become spiritual. If that is the way you like it, you want to keep your life that simple, it's up to you. But unfortunately, people are impressed by this. No, this should go. This has to go. So I think in many ways, in a very controversial way, I have set up an example for this, that Donna Karen and me wanted to come out with I design clothes. Everything that I wear is designed by me, and I also design for a few other people. So I said, she looked at my clothes and said, Sadhguru, you're the best dressed man in the world. I said, no. She said, yes, really, I've never seen anybody with your sense of color and texture and stuff. We must design clothes together. I said, okay, I'll give 1 week. 1 week, let's design something. But she said, I don't know how to design men's clothes. I said, what's the problem? I will design women's clothes. There is more options and more creativity there. Well, I didn't get the time to do it, but hope I'll do it someday. So, this idea of simplicity has destroyed many things. At certain times, certain people, somebody who lived in the jungle dressed in a certain way, but even they, when they came to the city, in those days whatever was formal, they wore those things. People's idea of spirituality or yogis and saints, I think these are yogis who've fallen out of the calendar images, okay?
Da da